We'll be starting right at 9 o'clock, just another moment. Okay, good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Senator Carozza, would you please offer us prayer this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Team Eastern Shore. This morning, we will focus our prayer on gratitude, as we truly are blessed to live and work on the Eastern Shore of Maryland and to serve the people of the shore. This is from Psalm 105. Give thanks to the Lord, proclaim his greatness, tell the nations what he has done, sing praise to the Lord, tell the wonderful things he has done, be glad that we belong to him, let all who worship him rejoice. And we also would like to give special thanks today for all of our Eastern Shore University and college presidents, their teams, and all of our students, and to the leadership and members of the Delmarva Chicken Association and to Lead Maryland. Heavenly Father, we give thanks together for your many blessings on all of us, and we ask for continued protections. In your holy name, we say together, amen.
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 So good morning and welcome to the Eastern Shore Delegation Meeting. Today's Friday, February 3rd. It's a pleasure to be here today. First, I'd like to approve the meeting minutes from last week. Could I please get a motion in a second?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you very much. So this morning we have three panels. The first panel are going to be our Eastern Shore University and college presidents. After that, we'll have Delmarva Chicken Association with an update, and following that will be Lead Maryland. So good morning to our university and community colleges and partners. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Mary Bolt. I believe I'm Cecil College president, and I will start and I will talk as quickly as I can. So good morning. I want to first thank the delegation for the ongoing support for Maryland community colleges. Most recently, we provided letters of support for Nurse Support 2 grants, which could potentially fund an accelerated registered nursing program for students who have accumulated significant credits. They could finish that curriculum in a year. We're also partnering in the community with Safe Harbor. They own many marinas for a marine trades technician program at Bohemia Vista. And this will allow, we have the curriculum from the American Boat and Yacht Council, it's industry standard, and we are most recently granted money from the Rural Maryland Economic Development Fund to provide equipment and technology for that program. A new workforce development program is pest management, where we've developed the program with Delaware Pest Control Association, the Maryland State Pest Control Association, and the National Pest Management Association to design a program where students have externships and theories, and they're eligible for the industry standard. We also worked with our partner at Northrop Grumman. They're currently building a supersonic missile center of excellence. We have a new program in manufacturing technician, which will help them meet their initial need of about 50 new technicians. We also continue to work with Donaldson Brown Center, located in our beautiful part of Cecil County overlooking the Susquehanna River. And we're working very closely related to hospitality and other venues for hospitality students. And we're also working with Great Wolf Lodge and extended conversations out to University of Maryland Eastern Shore in case our students do end up transferring for a 4-year degree. Want to let you know that currently, in terms of dual enrollment, about 26% of Cecil College's enrollment is made up of dually enrolled students. One last piece, since I'm running out of time and trying to give everyone their time here this morning. On March 4th, 2023, Cecil College is hosting our 3rd annual Rooted in the Community, which is a gathering of farmers, consumers, and residents of our rural communities. We hope to have a great discussion around feeding a growing population in this global food system. I want to thank you again for your support. Happy to answer any questions, and just very thankful that I've had an opportunity to say hello, and don't forget us in Cecil County.
Thank you, Ms. Bolt. We won't forget you in Cecil County. And by the way, there's plenty of time on the agenda for our university system. So feel free to have conversation. What we'll do, I think, is just have everyone make presentation and then have members ask questions after we're done. Thank you.
Good morning, senators and delegates. My privilege to be with you this morning and provide an update on Chesapeake. We're very appreciative of your support of the community colleges and higher education in general. I recently sent out a detailed update to your offices of what's been happening with our college, and I will briefly summarize in the interest of time to assure my colleagues their own opportunity to discuss their respective institutions. First, I would like to recognize the distinguished service of Dr. Ray Hoy to Chesapeake, to Warwick, and to the community college system of Maryland. His pending retirement from the presidency at Warwick, while certainly wonderful for him and his family, represents a huge change for all of us who have counted on his knowledge, expertise, and advocacy for community colleges in Maryland. He is a good friend and mentor, and I wish him well. For Chesapeake, the last year has been extremely positive. As we recover from the pandemic, we have our students back on campus in greater numbers, though we remain roughly about 50% remote and 50% on campus as far as our programs are concerned. Enrollment is up for spring by just over 3% for FTE and over 5% in headcount. Our first enrollment increase in a spring semester since my arrival at Chesapeake in May of 2018. We are grateful for this improvement. We are seeing a return of students across all categories, but dual enrollment, as you just heard at Cecil, has been a powerful element of this growth, with nearly 32% of our students this semester consisting of dual enrolled high school students. We continue to move the needle in our support of skilled trades with a successful raising over $3 million in a combination of private, foundation, and public funding through federal, state, and county resources to further strengthen our entire portfolio of non-credit and credit training and education. We are focusing on welding and metal fabrication, marine trades technology, and a new program in which we are hiring our first full-time faculty member in advanced manufacturing. The resources are benefiting nearly everything we do, including CDL truck driving, electrical, and HVAC. We continue to maintain excellence as well in our health professions and continue to maintain our important mission with transfer education in the liberal arts and sciences. My last information regards our successful application for funding for 3 of our sending county school districts with a federal Department of Education Upward Bound grant program, which we had years ago and we're very grateful to return to campus. This returning program identifies and assists eligible high school students to get to college, beginning with support programs in advising, financial literacy, developmental education, tutoring, and a campus summer program with college staff working directly with students and their families with our school districts in Kent, Caroline, and Talbot counties. Our staff are currently working with all of these school districts to enroll students this semester for services that will have direct impact this semester and over the summer for next fall. We're extremely grateful for the enthusiastic cooperation of our school districts and the support of Senators Cardin and Van Hollen for this grant, which will last for 5 years and is renewable. It serves underserved students who are first generation, from challenged socioeconomic backgrounds, and from our most vulnerable communities. It will work hand in hand with the Blueprint Initiative to increase participation in college education for these students. There's a lot more good to report, but we are grateful for the support and have enjoyed from this delegation and the communities we serve. I thank you for all of you for your leadership and service, and I'm always available to answer questions or host visits by you to our campus in Y Mills and our center in Cambridge. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Lepre from Salisbury University, and I send greetings to our senators and delegates, and thank you for this invitation to be here this morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. This is my first meeting since I began my tenure as the president of SU on July 15th of this past year, and I'm proud to be here representing our institution. I would like to start by echoing President Coppersmith with my thank yous to Ray Hoy, who I have not had a long time to get to know, but I know what an impact he has made on higher education on the Eastern Shore. And I would like to add to that my thanks and congratulations to Peter Goodwin of UMCES, who will also be retiring. Again, I haven't had a long time to get to know him, but I know what a difference he's making in how we think about environmental science. And I wish him the very, very best. He will absolutely be missed. At Salisbury University, we are committed to meeting the workplace needs of our state with a keen focus on the unique needs of the Eastern Shore. I'm very proud to say that our institution is doing very well. We have the second highest graduation and retention rates in the university system of Maryland, and we are continuing to push the needle on retention efforts at our institution. 98% of our students have a job within 1 year of graduation, and that's something that we want to continue to uphold and work on. To continue to try and meet the needs of the Eastern Shore and the entire state of Maryland, we are going to continue to advocate for a new facility to house our College of Health and Human Services, as our programs have currently outgrown their existing campus space, and we have much demand for the critical programs taught through this college, including nursing and social work. We will also be seeking funding for our Center for Healthy Communities, something that we know is going to make a difference. This entity provides health training and education for the entire Eastern Shore, and we want to be able to increase the resources that we're able to share forward. I can also talk a little bit about enrollment. I'm happy to share that this past fall, SU welcomed its second largest class in university history, and we're currently projecting that our fall 2023 class will be the largest in our history. We know that most colleges and universities saw an enrollment decline as a result of the pandemic, but our recent numbers indicate that we're well on our way to full recovery, and we're very pleased that we are also increasing the numbers of diverse students to our population, something that we are actively working to try and change. So we look forward to future partnerships with all the institutions on the Eastern Shore. We look forward to finding different pathways to make sure that our students have all sorts of different avenues to find the success that they're looking for. And I think SU can partner with literally anybody to make sure that we're creating those opportunities. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I truly appreciate the continued support and engagement from our delegation. And I'm happy at the end when all the presidents have had their opportunity to take any questions that you might have for me. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, Chair Adams and the Eastern Shore delegation. I'd also like to add my thanks for the support you've given higher education on the Eastern Shore, as well, of course, as our US congressional delegation. And we are absolutely delighted that President Lepre has joined the university system and also joined this very collegial group of university and college presidents. You probably picked up, this is a very tight group of leaders. A few other updates. We're also delighted that Dr. Michelle Masuki has joined the university system as the Vice Chancellor for Research and Economic Development. She's a native of the Eastern Shore with very, very deep roots, and she's absolutely phenomenal in her understanding of how higher education helps drive economic growth. A few other quick updates. After 20 years of exceptional leadership from Professor Mike Roman, we have a new director of the Horn Point Laboratory in Cambridge. Michael Saraki joins us after serving several leadership positions in the environmental sciences. And most recently, he's been the program director for biological science at the National Science Foundation. As you're very aware, UMCES has a global reach, but our priority is always Maryland. And I'd just like to hit a very few highlights from the last year since we were last together. We had the opportunity over the summer to celebrate with Governor Hogan the planting of the 1 billionth oyster out of the hatchery in Cambridge. We've also currently working with our colleagues at the Maryland Port Authority, the Maryland Environmental Service, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the Mid-Bay Islands Restoration Project. This is going to be an internationally recognized project for both innovation and community engagement. We also have a study on behalf of NOAA that's looking at microplastics. We've the test site, the Choptank River. And the purpose of this study is to understand the emerging understanding and role of microplastics in the environment. And what's learned in this study will have application across Chesapeake Bay and beyond. And finally, I'd like to highlight Professor Ming Lee, who's been leading the National Science Foundation's Research Coordination Network on coastal resilience. And most recently, he's been translating this knowledge to help the city of Cambridge build greater flood protection for that community. So in summary, thanks for your time. Please, if you're passing through Cambridge, we'd love to show you around and show some of the other activities we have going. So thank you.
So, good morning. This is Heidi Anderson, and I am the 16th president here at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I hope everyone can hear me all right. If you can give me a thumbs up. Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here this morning and greet you and say hello to all of our Eastern Shore delegation, our state as well as our federal delegation, and also to be on this platform with my fellow presidents here on the Eastern Shore. I too extend my gratitude and my appreciation to President Ray Hoy, who has been was very helpful to me in my short time here, and also to, of course, President Goodwin for their upcoming retirements. Both of you, I think that means that you leave me as the senior president in the longest tenure here on the shore. We're going to have to do something about that. But let me move on to a few greetings that I want to share with our delegation. First of all, let me say thank you to all of you, state and federal delegates, for what you've done for not only for our university here on the Eastern Shore, for University of Maryland Eastern Shore, but especially for your leadership and your service. I was able to host most of you here on my campus early in January and shared with you some brief updates at that time, and I'll share a few of them also today. As I mentioned before to you, fall semester showed for us also an increase in enrollment similar to Salisbury. We have seen our largest class in 7 years this past fall semester, and we were very thrilled with that. In addition, we had an 11% increase in retention, and both of those really are very, very successful on our end. As you know, when I started 5 years ago, I restarted our physician assistant program. Happy to share with you that this December, we graduated our first class from that program and had a successful accreditation visit. We will be anticipating their report in about 30 days. The fourth cohort of that, the fourth cohort of that physician assistant program will start this fall semester. The reason that is so important, as we all know, we saw what the effects of the COVID pandemic did on all lives across the country. But what we also saw, it revealed the dire need of what we need to do to actually combat and find solutions to the healthcare disparities problem. And healthcare disparities, as you know, impacts rural areas much more than in urban areas. And we really, that was revealed to us quite a bit from the COVID pandemic. And then, of course, a few weeks ago, when you heard from Tidal Health, we want to make sure that we're strengthening healthcare on the shore. I share that with you because here at UMES, we're the only HBCU in the country that has 8 health professions: physician assistants, pharmacists, physical therapists, just to name a few. And we are now going to be starting a partnership, as I shared with you in January, with the University of Maryland, Baltimore, to bring primary care physicians also here on the shore and have a partnership there. Speaking of partnerships, that is something that I have made as a hallmark of my presidency. And I'm happy to say we have partnered with all of our Eastern Shore colleges and universities here that are here today, but we've extended our partnerships to Nassau Wallops, to a number of other locations. It's all about enhancing workforce, also enhancing our economic footprint. And I want to thank you because you were able to see, some of you who were able to visit in January, the opening of our new phase 1 of our School of Pharmacy and Health Professions building. Some of you were able to be here and walk through that with us. And thank you. Our students and faculty moved into that here just last month and are really having a really good time getting around that building and using new resources. But as I sent to you yesterday in your boxes, my legislative priorities, we do have to really advocate for our second phase of that building. It will allow us to move all of those other health professions and increase the primary care services that I mentioned to you once we can get that second phase built. So that is the part of my priorities for this particular year, and I've shared those with you before. In addition, my priorities are, since we are the land grant and the 1890 land grant in the state, we want to make sure that we continue to advocate for our School of Agriculture. And our next priority on a capital plan is our Agriculture Research Center. That center will add a school or a building that will allow us to bring the farmers to the campus. They can learn more efficient and effective farming, as well as continue to do the research that we do impacting the Chesapeake Bay and the other areas that are needed in the poultry industry here on the shore. Finally, what I want to share with you, and I sent it to you yesterday as well, is a new partnership that we're looking at, and that is with our entire town and gown relationship. As you know, that is another hallmark of my presidency. And we have now embarked on an exploratory study with Michael Graves. And on that exploratory study I sent to you yesterday, you can see a picture of what Princess Anne looks like now. And then you can see the proposed rendering that we're looking at. The reason this is so important, it is a complete town and gown partnership with all of our commissioners, including our partners in the Crisfield area. And if we move toward this, not asking for any funding, I'm wanting to put it on your radar, because what you can help us do is find those type of funds that are out there. With 300 historic buildings on our campus and in the town of Princess Anne and Crisfield combined, we know that there has to be funding for historic preservation, for historic renovation, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So I wanted to at least bring that to your attention and to my fellow president's attention. It has been a pleasure to work with each and every one of you, and I look forward to our continued relationships and continued working relationship. And finally, let me end by saying thank you for the HBCU funding and helping move that forward. We have done quite a bit with that in handing scholarships to our students, creating 3 new academic programs, sport management, digital media, and we're going to move forward with improving our existing programs. So I cannot thank you enough, and always please feel free to visit our campus. Mark April 28th on your calendars for our ribbon cutting for the building. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Sosolsky. I'm greeting you from Chestertown, Maryland this morning on the beautiful Eastern Shore. It's a real delight to be with you all today. And I want to follow the lead of my fine colleagues at other institutions who've spoken this morning in a couple of ways. First, I want to tip my cap to Ray Hoy, who is a proud graduate of Washington College. And we're delighted to congratulate him on just a terrific career. And we're looking forward to see what the next chapter holds for you, Ray. The other theme that I want to touch on as well is one that's incredibly important, and it's called workforce development. And we've all really touched on that this morning. This is a very important way in which our missions really dovetail beautifully with that of the state. And I wanted to just share a couple of things with you this morning about that. If you don't mind, I'm going to try something rather bold, which is called screen sharing. How's that looking? Are you able to see that? Okay, thank you. It's a brave new world we all live in electronically these days. Just a couple of slides to share with you about retention and graduation outcomes at Washington College. Currently, our first year retention rate of our first year class is about 82%, and that is strong, but not strong enough. We are working hard to raise that to about 90%. That's where you would like to see a national liberal arts college performing at that level. So we're putting in place all sorts of measures on our campus to support first-year students, not just to make it to that second year, their important sophomore year, but also right through to graduation. And you'll see on the right hand of this slide, the 6-year graduation rate. Again, that's fine, but we are working we're working very hard toward a much better percentage. We're looking at 80% to 82% over the next 5 years. The other thing I wanted to mention has also been mentioned this morning, which is what does it look like when our students graduate? Our launch rate, we're calling 92%, right? 92% successful career launch for our most recent graduating class in May of 21. What does that mean? That means that these students, within 6 months of graduation, have found gainful employment in a career-oriented field, not part-time work. They are serving in the military. They are volunteering full-time, like in the Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, or doing other things that are career-oriented. So that is something that we're incredibly proud of, and we're not satisfied. We're going to continue to work to raise that number to 95% over the next 5 years. So this is what we're able to, this is one way to kind of visualize the way in which Washington College is contributing to that all-important workforce development. The other thing that I wanted to just share with you this morning is the strategic plan that our institution has recently completed. So I've just completed my 1.5-year anniversary, if that can be celebrated. I celebrate it. And during that time, we spent a great amount of time listening carefully to the community, not just the college community, but the community in Chestertown and in Kent County, understanding our responsibility to work very closely with our community to ensure economic thriving takes place and mutual benefit. And so our strategic map consists of the following priority areas. We're looking to foster a diverse, equitable, and inclusive college community, and also community in our surrounding area. We're also very focused on climate change and the role that the college plays in helping to educate students to understand the importance of sustainability and the effect of human activity on the climate. And so we will be focusing strategic efforts to advance our curriculum and also improve our carbon footprint. The other 5 areas you'll see here are ensuring academic excellence, delivering a transformative student experience that's tied to future success. So you can see that we are continuing to be very focused on outcomes here for students. We're investing in, attracting, and retaining outstanding faculty and staff to our region. We're looking to expand recognition of the college and the understanding of what we contribute to higher education, to Maryland, and to the nation. And also, we're working to build financial strength and operational sustainability. These are really the areas that we will be focused on for the next 5 years. And then we will develop a second strategic plan that will last 5 years. And the reason I mention that is that that will take us to the 250th anniversary of Washington College, which will be an incredibly special occasion for us. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen if I can find a way to do that. There we go. And turn it over to my next colleague. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful to be with you this morning.
Good morning, everyone. And I want to thank everyone for their kind comments and well wishes. I appreciate that. And thank you all for your support. Typically, time's running very short at this point, and I told my colleagues who said, hey, what are you going to do? And I said, I typically don't have to do anything because we're out of time and I just get to say goodbye for everybody. But you have left me a little time, so I will say a few things about Warwick, but also I've got a couple of bills I'd like to talk about and some other things. We're working very closely with the public schools for the blueprint implementation. That's really important to us. Part of that is dual enrollment. You heard my colleagues, Mary and Cliff, talk about the dual enrollment increase. We're seeing that as well. Another thing we're doing is nursing expansion. We're planning next year to, again, expand our nursing program. And hopefully we're going to get some support from the local medical community to make that happen. But we feel it's really important everywhere I go. I keep hearing over and over how critical the need is in this arena. I saw Matt Tifoe's on the call, and we've been working with Chop Tank. It's part and parcel to what we're doing in our new building, the Applied Technology Center. I'll talk a little more about that in a moment. But one of the things we're doing with Chop Tank is coming up with a program for power line workers. And the completers of this program will earn a CDL license and a first level power line certification for immediate entry into the workforce in very high paying jobs and a critical need area as well. It's not just Chop Tank, it's Delmarva Power, it's Verizon, and a lot of contractors. My understanding is there's only 5 of these programs on the East Coast, and working with Chop Tank and support of them, we're going to make this happen here on the Lower Shore. Also, we are currently working on new scheduling options. We recognize coming out of COVID that students are accessing education differently. Cliff mentioned the percent of students who are still in a virtual environment accessing their education. So we're going through a process institutionally of looking at a new scheduling process for our institution, how we move forward in this post-COVID environment, post-pandemic environment. Also want to mention that we received a $1.5 million grant for workforce training for both the wind and Chesapeake Shipbuilding, who's always in need of welding support. They have about 150 employees. Steve McGee tells me he'd like to have 200. We're helping them every way we possibly can to increase that workload. And obviously, the board's very busy. There's a presidential search underway, and I'm not involved in that process, but I'm excited about that process. Having been the second president, looking forward to having a third president to lead this institution. So I do want to mention a couple things. In the governor's budget, we've received full CAPE funding. This is the second time in history when this has happened. Please help us keep that in place. We're very excited about that. On the capital side, Warwick doesn't have any projects this year in the capital budget, but as you are well aware, our Applied Technology Center, that's going to be coming online. In fact, we have a ribbon cutting planned. You're going to get information about this April 20th, 2 p.m. It might be a BYOC event. Bring your own chair. Still no delivery dates for lots of the furniture and instructional equipment. Supply chain issues still exist. So fingers crossed we'll have it, but we're definitely going to have the ribbon cutting and get things going in that facility. And we've got a lot of new programs that we're going to be introducing in that facility. I'm very excited about that. The governor in his budget included an additional $937,000 per college for facilities renewal funds. Governor Hogan did this last year. I think the Hogan budget that was put together, working with Governor Moore's administration, they put it back in and continue to support that. This is really beneficial to the colleges. It helps us maintain our institutional infrastructure. And we're very appreciative of this, and we think it can be put to good use. We know it can actually. Just a little bit of mention about it. The current facilities renewal grant program, that legislation provides for 8 colleges every other year to receive a percent of CIP. It's 5%. And the expectation was that our CIP would be about 80 million each year, and each of those colleges would receive 500,000. Actually, this year, the CIP is only 67 million, 66 and a half. So everybody's getting a little less. Those 8 colleges that qualify this year, we're actually seeking legislation to make 500 the floor, not the ceiling, as this moves forward. And rather than have to wait every other year for this type of funding, maybe make it an annual allocation. It's only 15 million today. That would double it going forward if that works. Also want to mention promise legislation. Haven't seen it. It hasn't dropped yet, but we feel as though there's a real need to improve the promise program. It should be decentralized. It should be administered by the campuses, and the promise isn't achieving its promise at the moment. So I believe Ben Barnes is working on this bill, and hopefully we'll see something soon. When we do, I'll certainly let you know. Another bill I'd like to draw to your attention is currently a House bill. I believe Senator Gazzone is going to drop the same bill in the Senate. It's about funding waivers. The bill provides for $10 million to fund mandated waivers. These are state mandated waivers that the legislature has put into place. What that means is we don't get any funding for these students. We receive no tuition for them. And this backfills that tuition loss that we experience at the community college level. So frankly, I think it's it's a feel-good thing to offer these free programs to people, but realize there's a cost to us. And hopefully we can get some funding for that going forward. Final thing I want to mention is Student Advocacy Day. It's February 21st. Zoom meetings have been set up with all of you. Thank you so much for your continued support and for the opportunity to meet with our students. And again, thank you for your support, not just for my institution, but for me as well over these many years. I've very much appreciated. 47-year career, 23 as president of Warwick. The other 24 was spent at Chesapeake College. And it was a calling. I'm a Chesapeake graduate, a Washington graduate, and several other schools, but I've been able to stay on the shore my entire life and help support the community and help improve economic development and improve lives of many, many individuals in our communities. And I'm just so happy to have had a career to be able to have those opportunities. But I want to thank you all for your support.
Okay. Thank you very much. As members are starting to raise their hand for questions, Dr. Hoy, since you came last, I'll just speak for just a moment and thank you. This is my 9th year in public service, and you've been right by my side and actually all of our sides with your unapologetic advocacy for your community colleges and education in general, as we talk about Blueprint and in our four-year colleges, and we have transfer students coming from your community college. And when I think back through the number of years I've met people like you in different industries and trades, you are truly one of the best and most authentic Eastern Shore representatives and advocates. You do it the right way, and I want to thank you, for that. To all of our community colleges, from Mary Bolt down to Dr. Anderson, Cecil County to Somerset, you fell right in line with last week with public education. Our superintendents presented last week. The week before that, we were focused on healthcare. So our very first meetings spoke to some of the greatest challenges and how we meet those challenges on the Eastern Shore. We'll segue into agriculture and economic development over the next handful of weeks, but I don't think it's a mistake that we're sitting here today with our community colleges and four-year colleges as we talk about the most important ways to achieve success on the Eastern Shore, which is having people learn and live here on the shore and stay here and earn a wonderful career in our rural part of the state. So I want to thank you for that. Senator Crozier.
Thank you very much. What tremendous presentations, and to show and also to see how much you all are working together as university presidents, college presidents. I would like to ask my question. I would like to hear the wisdom of Dr. Hoy while we still have him. And I have to tell you, I am taking it very hard. I guess maybe I had not prepared myself, Dr. Hoy. And so when I saw it in print that you were retiring, I just, that pit kind of went into my stomach. And because I have to tell you, what I have most appreciated about your leadership, and my question is going to go right to that, is the fact that you have been so skillful in matching the needs of the employers with your programming at Warwick, and to be so flexible, and then to figure out the other partnerships, not only on the shore, but statewide and federal partnerships. So my question to you, Dr. Hoy, we're not going to let you off the hook. We really want to tap your expertise with the workforce shortage. We all know the workforce shortage is in every major industry area. And I wanted to just allow you maybe to give some highlights on how to stay on track to the goal that the chair just talked about, the shared goal we all have, which is to kind of keep our talent here on the shore, and with these career paths.
Well, I wish I had the magic elixir that I could hand out, and that would work for everybody. To your point, I can't think of an employer who hasn't come to me in the last year and said, I need people. What can you do? How can you help us? How can you support us? And, the reality is we can't do everything, but we sure try. And I think the community colleges in particular, because we have a specific role in each of our communities, we try to address those needs as best we can. And sometimes it's by partnering with other institutions to help deliver that sort of thing. I think back to when we learned about the shortage in dental hygiene. It was just too expensive for us to do it by ourselves, but we reached out to some other partner institutions and said, hey, what can we do here? And in those cases, we partnered with Allegheny College, Maryland, Baltimore City, Prince George's, and actually had seats for our students at in-county tuition rates because we were able to build those partnerships. And then the students came back, and we actually found employers who paid their way so that they would come back to our community. So you just have to be creative. As I'm meeting with people in the medical field, the hospitals and that sort of thing, and they're sharing with us some of the shortages that they're having, sure, we try to respond as best we possibly can to address those needs, hence the expansion I mentioned in the nursing area. Steve McGee, and he talked to me about how serious the need he has for the welding industry. And again, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to build a building, and we're going to make sure that we have these resources here where we can make sure that we have a trained workforce in a number of these different areas. With the wind energy coming, we know that we have to upskill or train people to work in those industries. It's a partnership between the community and the institutions to say, how can we address your needs and how can you help us do that? And that's the same thing I mentioned earlier with Matt Truffaut from Chop Tank. They came to us and said, hey, we'd like to do this. What do you think? And we said, yeah, let's do it. We'll partner and make these things happen. It's all it takes. It just takes good working relationships. And I know that at my institution, that's going to continue no matter who's sitting in the seat. And it happens across the state with all of our institutions. And then the partnership with the four-year institutions where we say, okay, when we can't complete the training here, let's move it up to the next level. How can we create a transfer pathway for these students to move forward and get the additional skill set they need to be successful in these different roles?
Thank you, Dr. Hoy. Speaker Pro Tem.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm just elated about the education system. Our higher education system on the Eastern Shore is just amazing. And I just always I'm proud to share that with my colleagues and to just be able to hear about and see firsthand the forward thinking from every institution. Everybody has a role to play and everybody's doing it and everybody's working together. And it has improved over the years, I must say. So to that end, just thank you, everyone. Dr. Hoy, certainly, I'm gonna miss you. Oh my goodness. He's my go-to on many fronts. And so I certainly know that you will enjoy retirement, but please know you have certainly educated myself and many others on CADE formula funding and made us huge advocates. And we all make sense now when we ask the questions to the policy analysts. So thank you for that bit of education. And to Dr. Goodwin, thank you so much for your service to our state. And on behalf of the Speaker's office to both presidents, thank you for all that you do and you continue to do. Everybody did a wonderful presentation, so I won't have too many questions, but I would like to just ask of everyone is just to keep us apprised of which pieces of legislation are really needing attention for us to focus on. Dr. Goodwin, if you could look to, any oyster pieces of legislation that are coming forth, because February the 10th is the date that we're in the House saying that you have to have all your bills in if they're going to get a hearing. So certainly look to those dates, all presidents, and just say, hey, Eastern Shore delegation, this is what we need. These are the numbers, and this is a bit of information, whether it's good or bad. I just want to just reiterate how much that is very much important for us to do our work and do it successfully. So to that end, that's all I needed to say, Mr. Chair, and thank you. And one last piece I want to say to Dr. Anderson, thank you so much for moving forward on making sure
One where he claims that no one.
agriculture efforts are moving, and the needle is moving, and it's really taking on a whole new role in the state of Maryland with our new administration. Be honest with you, our governor last night was at the Taste of the Agriculture, and I'm going to keep it in front of his eyes and ears, as well as the new secretary. So everybody working together again has been tremendous, and I look forward to continue to work with everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And I see no further questions, so I'll just close by thanking everyone. It'd be remiss if I didn't shout out to my alma mater, Salisbury University, President LaPree. Welcome. And my wife and I went there. Our 3 kids went to Salisbury University. So you've got a friend in me and the delegation. So welcome. And Dr. Goodwin, I'll echo Speaker Pro Tem's comments and thank you for your leadership. The Chesapeake Bay is a treasure. It's a true treasure, and it deserves all the very best science. I do have a very brief question for you, and that is, with oyster restoration, maybe give me your thoughts as we come in with the new administration, some of the opportunities that you see with oyster restoration. And in the Star Democrat yesterday, there was an article. So the watermen and the fisheries are certainly paying close attention. Just thought you'd give a couple of minutes of thoughts as to where we stand with oyster restoration and the protection of our treasure, which is the Chesapeake Bay. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair Adams, and yeah, happy to do that. So as you're probably aware, the state through DNR has been taking a close look at the oysters. Our scientists alongside the DNR scientists completed the oyster assessment, which looked at the Chesapeake Bay or the Chesapeake Bay waters in Maryland to really understand the current status. And the next steps from that will be to decide on some of the your actions across the bay. We are looking at a fairly major update, thanks to the legislature last year, to refurbish the hatchery and looking at increased capacity there over the next coming years, and also to ensure that just outstanding facility is going to be resilient and robust. It was 20 years old and we were beginning to see some failure. So we're going to be increasing the robustness of the hatchery itself. And then in addition to that, there's new surveys that it will be conducted again through DNR with support from scientists at UMCES. To understand some of the key limiting factors, such as substrate. So all of that's going on. And then the other part that I think is very exciting, that is really being carried by the agencies, but looking for these win-win-win opportunities. So particularly on the Eastern Shore, we're facing very severe coastal erosion, loss of land, loss of wetlands. And so there's some very innovative work going on, both at UMCES, looking at the Mid-Bay Islands. What role do oyster restorations, the creation of oyster reefs, do, not just for bringing back the oysters and the oyster fishery, but what does that mean in terms of protection of our coastlines? And what does it mean in terms of improving the water quality of the bay? As you know, those oysters do a very good job in filtering out some of the pollutants. So the short answer is there's a lot of very exciting things happening on a lot of fronts. And of course, many of those innovations and things that are being tested are right there in your backyard on the Eastern Shore.
Yes. Thank you very much. And the win-win-win is so very important. And I appreciate that sentiment. And so does everyone on the delegation. Okay, I see no further questions. Thank you very much. And we're ready to move to our next panel, which is Delmarva Chicken Association. We welcome Holly Porter and Zach Evans. So.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Eastern Shore delegation. We're very pleased to be here with you this morning. And always enjoy being here the day after the Taste of Ag. I saw many of you in person and many of you across the room because it was a very full room last night. But really appreciate everyone that came out to the Taste of Ag event. And it was wonderful having the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the administration there as well, too. So I am going to attempt to share screen. And let's see if this works first. And my question is, are you seeing my notes or the actual presentation? All right, does that appear to be working right, I believe? So again, my name is Holly Porter. I'm the Executive Director of the Delmarva Chicken Association. We are the trade association that represents our chicken companies, our chicken growers and allied businesses here on Delmarva. I also want to give a shout out to Grayson Middleton, who is our new government affairs manager. I know that many of you have seen him throughout the hallways, and he's been handing out invites to different events as well too. So I want to make sure that I know he's on the call as well. And I also am going to turn over some parts of this presentation to our DCA president, Mr. Zach Evans. I'm going to turn it over to him right now.
Good morning. Thank you for the time. It's a pleasure to be here with all the members of the Eastern Shore delegation and a lot of our other community members from Delmarva and the Eastern Shore. I am grateful to have the opportunity to represent what I think is one of the most important industries within the agricultural sector, our poultry industry. So going to give you some highlights, some overviews of where we're at as an industry representative, and talk a little bit about some of the highlights and some of our major focuses as we move forward into 2023. So let's jump ahead to the next slide. So, one of the things that I think is really unique, well, that I know is really unique about DCA as a trade organization is we not only represent the industry and the companies that are players within that industry, we also represent the farmers themselves. And so, there are a number of regional trade associations within the agricultural community, and DCA is very unique in that we've got over 1,300 family farms that we represent all across the Eastern Shore. And we also have the 5 chicken companies that we represent, but there's a much larger community that kind of touches. And, I don't want to belabor you with the statistics, but, we've got over 18,000 employees that work for those 5 respective companies in Maryland. And the partnerships with the universities and our local government officials and with the hundreds of allied businesses that we work with really create a multiplier effect. So we say 18,000 jobs, but we know that indirectly we're supporting upwards of 35 to 40,000 jobs. So I just always like to share that. This is, of course, the 5 companies that I referenced. I work for Mount Air Farms, but DCA represents all 5 of the integrators. Everybody has a seat at the table. So that, in addition to the grower representation and the allied businesses, I think really gives us a unique perspective. It allows us to keep agricultural and consumer focused issues at the forefront of everything we do because we represent both sides of the equation. So Allen Harim, Amick Farms, Mount Air, Tyson, and of course Purdue. No, you're good, Holly. In addition to working with farmers, those 5 companies, just so you have some context of the way it works, we also provide the birds, the feed. We help to harvest that product. We help to market and sell that product, get it in the hands of consumers. And we're providing veterinary services and other things that are needed for those farmers to be successful. Because ultimately, that's what we're looking for, is a successful family farmer to produce high quality, affordable, locally raised protein here in Maryland. So in 2022, just some large industry overview numbers. There were 596 million chickens raised and processed on Delmarva. That equates to 4.4 billion pounds of chicken. Now, of course, these numbers are hot off the press. We're just wrapping up year end, so they may be subject to change, but understand these are conservative estimates. So if anything, you'll see some additions to this if you get the opportunity to speak with Holly or perhaps Grayson later on in the year. 1,334 family farms raising chickens. We talk a lot about the model of the integrated poultry system, but one thing that I can share, it's a unique perspective to me. A lot of DCA presidents might not have this. But my background was in agricultural lending before I came and worked with the integrators. And the reason I share that is because these family farmers invest heavily in their operations and they run it like a small business. So, they become experts immediately in HR and financial bookkeeping and reporting and compliance. And, DCA really plays an integral role in helping to maintain the success of those farms by ensuring that they have access to all the resources they need. So those 1,300 family farmers are really why we're here, and it's why we have the opportunity to do the great work we do and help feed people all over the world. Just shy of 5,000 chicken houses, just under 4,900. We've got 18,000 plus company employees. That number is likely to change. We're just waiting on some updates because, as you know, we're continuously looking for opportunities to hire and retain local talent, like some of our local collegiate representatives discussed earlier. That's one of the big focuses for us in the chicken industry, is to provide high quality careers, not only for the farmers, but also for the people that work with those companies. And 1.5 billion spent on corn, soybeans, wheat, and other feed ingredients. That's sourced locally. So, I really can't reiterate enough that the grain that you see, the corn and soybeans that we're all very familiar with on Delmarva, that landscape looks different than it did 50 years ago. Farmers were growing different crops 50 years ago, and we've created a model that affords grain farmers the opportunity to sell their crops for lucrative prices and helps them remain financially viable. So our total contribution to the overall chicken GDP is just under $5 billion. We estimate at 4.8 billion, and that's using some pretty hard numbers based on market prices for grain and poultry when it's delivered to consumers. So specific to Maryland, we talk a lot about Delmarva because it can be hard to extrapolate some of that information, but Holly and her team work really hard with the 5 companies to figure out where these growers are and where their impact is. And so if you look from 21 to 22, you'll see that there was a slight decrease in growers and houses. This is not unique to chicken. This is not unique to animal agriculture. This is sort of what we see across all subsectors within ag. It's the natural attrition of retirement and consolidation. Every year, we play with that number. It's 1 to 1.5% of the population that's raising food for the rest of us, myself included, to eat. So, as we continue to see that consolidation in poultry, I would just like to remind everyone that that's what's happening across all industries. A lot of it has to do with the scaling of agriculture, but also with the disconnect from the family farm. A few generations ago, most of us had a personal relationship to the food that we were consuming. As we continue to move, I think, towards a more specialized society and civilization, we just don't have the ability to connect directly to that food. So we're seeing less farmers, but we're constantly trying to encourage young people to get into the business, which is why ag education is so important. And I appreciate our university partners that are joining us today as well. You can look at the jobs. We've totaled those up for you in Maryland. It's about 7,500. And that's direct. That doesn't include the multiplier that I think Holly often uses. Is it 7 times, Holly, typically for an indirect job, roughly? And that's a beacon number that we've used for years. But the thing that I think is important is if you look at the average job and the wages and benefits that are paid out, you're talking about 7,500 jobs that are paying a very livable wage, especially with the cost of living on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And you're talking about raising $264 million, contributing towards federal taxes, and then another $123 million in state and local taxes. So, those Maryland chicken numbers are significant. It's a huge part of our industry, and our farmers represent us well, as well as our industry employees. So this slide does a great job at capturing capacity and volume. How many pounds of chicken are we producing a year? And so 596 million pounds is slightly down from where we were about 5 years ago. A lot of that we have to probably attribute to inflation and feed cost. As a result, everybody is sort of sharpening their pencils, trying to figure out better ways to operate in a lean manner and do as much as we can and still deliver that affordable high quality protein to our consumers, because I think that's one thing that's unique about chicken is the price point gives people the opportunity to consume more protein today than they have in years past. Number of chicken houses on Delmarva. I would ask you to raise your hand if you've seen one driving down Route 50, but I think we'd have a unanimous vote there. So, we're all familiar with those chicken houses. And I think sometimes we sort of hear the sentiment that they're popping up everywhere and that there's more of them today than ever before. But the truth is we continue to sort of trend downward in terms of the number of houses over the years. So we have 4,889 houses that are available for production. And we still know that within those houses that are producing chickens today, there's a significant portion of that capacity that is older than 30 years, which means farmers have done a great job maintaining those assets and those resources. But there is likely the opportunity to upgrade and incorporate some more innovative and current technology in terms of our general capacity. I share that because you're probably going to continue to see new chicken houses being built, but that is just what we have to do as an industry to ensure that we are utilizing the best resources and technology that's available to our farmers and our growers. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw your hand up and Holly will keep an eye on it, but I'm just rolling through this stuff. So stop me. I know I can get a little quick in my speech.
No, go ahead and make your presentation. We'll do it at the end. Sure.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. I just want to make sure I wasn't cutting anyone off. So, here you can see the number of growers. Again, we talked about that sort of natural attrition, the retirement of the previous generation, and the encouragement for the next generation to pick up the torch and run, with the same passion that we've seen historically from our farmers on the Eastern Shore. So, we've got about 7% less growers than we did 5 years ago. And, to me, we can talk about it in a lot of ways. But as I look at these numbers and I look at some of the resources and the human capital that's involved trending downward, and I see the output trending upward, it really speaks to the sustainability and the hard work of our industry to try to make sure that we're maximizing our resources, that there is minimal waste. And, quite frankly, we're doing more with less. And, as inputs and other costs continue to increase, that's something that we as an industry will be charged with to make sure that we can maintain that consistent, affordable food source. So pounds of meat produced, this leads right into what I just said. You can see that that's a pretty steady upward trend. So, in terms of the meat produced, this is indicative of the technology that we have in the houses. Quite frankly, better houses are being built today. We know more than we did 10 years ago, especially 20, 30 years ago. And we're incorporating all of that useful science and information into the way that we raise birds and we set our farmers up for success. So, we're growing a larger bird. That is just genetics. I look at a lot of folks on the call. I'm sure many of us have pets at home. They might range in size from a Chihuahua to a Great Dane. Those characteristics for those animals are things that we breed because they're specific for what we're trying to achieve. So we are growing larger birds on Delmarva, but that's just because we've worked hard to find a breed that will provide us with the meat that we need to feed not only our local community, but the world. So the feed costs incurred by companies is something I want to touch on. It is the single largest cost that we incur. And so what it also demonstrates is the three-legged stool that we often talk about when we talk about the chicken industry and its impact to Maryland and Delmarva and the Eastern Shore. So, chicken growers and the grain industry are closely intertwined. And so as grain prices are rising, we know that input prices are also rising for the farmers that grow that grain, which means that they're not capturing any more margin on a higher price. And so we are price takers when we buy grain as an industry from those farmers. And so we have to figure out how to, again, run a more efficient operation and make sure that we can still pass that margin on to the grain farmers and the poultry growers that give us the opportunity to do the work that we do for one of those 5 companies. This is one that I'm proud of, and I think this number is going to continue to trend upward, but it also was the perfect segue from what I was previously saying. You can see the continued trend of payment to growers is increasing. And what that means is that as margins are getting squeezed on things like inputs, we are still very conscientious of the need to pass that on to the folks that raise our food. And so you can see a pretty steep jump from 2017 to 2022 in those 5 years. You're talking about an increase from $250 million in contract payment to $350 million in contract payments. So we're working to keep that money in the pockets of our farmers so they continue to invest into their resources and their operations, and we can grow a happy, healthy bird. Before I turn it back over to Holly, I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity. And I want to tell you that, like many people that work in our industry, I'm proud of our regional food system. And that's really what I look at it as. Our birds are fed with grain that's sourced within 75 miles of where they're raised. They're hatched, harvested, and then typically distributed to local markets in the Northeast before some of those outliers make their way across the country and potentially overseas. So I'm proud of our regional food system. I'm most proud of the farmers that we get to work with every day and represent. And I appreciate all of your time. I will turn it back over to Holly because I know she's got a lot of interesting stuff to cover.
Thank you. So again, I'm going to touch on just a couple topics. I had this slide presentation from last year, and unfortunately the hot topics, several of them remain, include high path avian influenza. Of course, when I gave this presentation last year, I think we were within a couple weeks of actually having our first cases here on Delmarva. So again, this is not something that the threat has not necessarily decreased any more than it was last year. We do know that it is still very much within our wild waterfowl. We know that it is also moved into many of our domestic waterfowl as well. They are asymptomatic carriers of it. And then, of course, last year, we also saw cases where it was in raptors, whether that was bald eagles, whether that was vultures, and so forth. So again, this is something that is very much a concern for us. We continue to emphasize biosecurity to the utmost degree with our growers within the companies. And we also will just emphasize the partnership that is needed in working with the Department of Agriculture. I know that the new incoming secretary has been briefed quite a bit on this, and we really do appreciate all of those efforts. I think Zach really touched on, inflation. Inflation and other costs have definitely continued to haunt the chicken industry, no different than anyone else. And that's everything from feed costs to labor costs. And also for our growers, they continue to see increasing costs, whether that's energy, electricity is one of their number one expenses after their mortgage, plus everything day to day, those costs as well too. So again, I think everyone has seen the impacts all the way around, including our industry. Fortunately, again, demand continues to be high, and production continues to go up. So, we do have a high quality protein that is at a reasonable cost, and the demand continues to be there for that. One thing that I'm very excited to share with the group is that we are celebrating our 100th anniversary of the meat chicken industry that literally got started on Delmarva in Ocean View, Delaware, with Miss Cecil Steele. She was supposed to receive 50 chicks for layers, and she received 500, decided to try raising them for meat and selling them to some hotels up in the Wilmington area. And it took her about 17 weeks to get to 2.5 pounds, which again, I think Zach has emphasized the importance of genetics and where we are now in growing birds in about 7 to 8 weeks. But she thought this was such a wonderful idea, and she received about what is equivalent to $5 per pound, and decided the next flock she was going to get 1,000. So within a couple of years, they had actually built coops to raise about 10,000 chickens. So this is literally how our meat chicken industry got started, not only in Delmarva, but across the U.S. We are celebrating that this year. I think all of you should have received an invitation for our kickoff event that's being held next Saturday at the Delaware Ag Museum, where Cecil Steele's chicken coop is located. And so we look forward to that kickoff event. You're going to hear more. There's going to be some public relations campaigns, media campaigns, and possibly some other things that we'll be announcing throughout the year to help celebrate this. So again, we're very excited about this. And this really just speaks to our heritage on Delmarva of just how important our chicken community is to us. Real quickly, I just wanted to brief everyone again. For the past couple of years, I've shared more information about our lower shore ambient air monitoring. So this was a wonderful partnership between the chicken industry, the Maryland Department of the Environment, the Campbell Foundation for the Environment, and UMES. It was good. Dr. Anderson, who talked a lot about agriculture. This is another great partnership that we've had in trying to collect data. I just want to be clear, this is not a study or, hardcore comprehensive research, but this is really data collection of ambient air, which is really community air within areas that have chicken farms and within areas that do not. So our Pocomoke City monitoring station, as you can see, has quite a number of chicken houses within a 1 mile, 2 mile, and even beyond within the 3 mile radius. We also have a location at the UMES farm there in Princess Anne that has some less chicken houses around. And then we also have some numbers that we're comparing in more urban areas as well too. And again, all of this information is available to the public. I had the website in there earlier. And you can see that there are 3 things that we're studying for, or I'm sorry, that we're gathering data on. PM 2.5, which is often associated with health issues, asthma, and so forth. And you can see, again, there is a standard, an ambient air standard that is set by EPA. And you can take a look and see where our average and our median numbers are falling in. And really, they're falling in quite in line with other areas that have chicken and areas that don't have chicken. So again, this is all data that has been gathered. These are updated summary reports since the time we started until January of 2023. We also have similar things with PM10, again, another type of particulate matter that we're looking at gathering data on. And again, you can see that those numbers really fall in line very much similar with other areas throughout the state. And then finally, the one that is usually the highest topic of the question is ammonia. So again, ammonia does not have an ambient air threshold or an ambient air standard set by EPA. However, the Maryland Department of the Environment did choose, after looking at a couple different options, choose a 350 parts per billion threshold to really just sort of give us a baseline of what to compare with. And again, you'll see our average and our median numbers in the Pocomoke City, while slightly higher than potentially other areas, is still nowhere near any of the threshold. As a matter of fact, you'll notice that Princess Anne, which actually has a lower concentration of poultry, has a higher maximum area or hourly value. And honestly, what we found is that is because the field next to the monitoring data, when we saw those maximum hourly was about a day or so after commercial fertilizer had actually been put onto the field, which also volatilizes into ammonia. So again, we're pleased to have that data. We are also pleased to share that the partnership is continuing. We recently signed an MOU, and we actually will be adding another monitoring site on the Eastern Shore of Maryland in the Harmony, sort of Caroline County area. I know that they were working on the last details of getting that up and running, and hopefully that data will start to appear on our website as well within the next month or so. So again, just a good partnership, I think, all the way around, and working together and just trying to get some clear data about the air that all of us breathe here on Delmarva. A couple more things. I'll just mention some of our legislative priorities. I have to give a huge shout out to Speaker Pro Tem Sample Hughes for helping us again with the sales and use tax on electricity exemption. So for many of our farmers, our growers, they may be on residential rates and they already receive a sales and use tax exemption. Manufacturing receives a sales and use tax exemption on the supply of electricity. However, those who fall into our commercial side do not at this moment in time. And so we want to make it very, clear for the comptroller's office that, like many aspects of agriculture that already have sales and use exemptions, we want to continue that as well too. This is going to be very important to our growers, especially right now, as I mentioned, the rising energy costs that are out there. So we hope that others will be there to help support us on this. And I know there's, I believe, a cross-file, Senator Gazone is supposed to be cross-filing on the Senate side as well too. A couple other big points. We just want to continue to emphasize the importance of making sure there are funds available for high-path avian influenza, including some potential funds for growers who may be what we call sort of in the wrong place, wrong time within control areas. We've had some discussions with the Department of Ag, as well as we've had discussions on the federal level of how we might be able to help those folks as well. It is important to us that biomass remain in Tier 1 renewable energy. That would be for things like manure to energy. It would be, processing waste to energy. There's a number of companies out there, including some anaerobic digesters, who have looked into investing into technology that will be a win-win for both our chicken community as well as for the environment as well. And we believe it's important that those remain as Tier 1 renewable energy. We are also, just like everyone, focused on climate change. We recognize the importance of it, and we know that agriculture has a big part in helping with that. We just also ask that all of the tools in the toolbox remain when it comes to energy, including especially our natural gas and propane options as well too. And finally, environmental justice is an important topic for everyone, especially on the Delmarva. As Zach had mentioned, we have 18,000 employees across Delmarva that cover all sex, color, race, and income level. And so, again, these are all members of our chicken community. We're also very proud to say that in Maryland, 23% of our chicken growers are minority population. And that's compared with only 4.5% across the United States in agriculture. So we are really proud of the diversity that we have, both from the company level as well as the grower level. And we'll continue to make sure that the environmental health and well-being for all Marylanders is important. Just two bills at this moment in time that we have taken a position of opposing. Yesterday, Senator Carrozza heard us speaking in opposition of the pesticide registration PFAS testing. And the main issue and concern with that, again, is the fact that there really is no testing method, approved testing method. So I think we're putting the cart before the horse here a little bit in the want. And the Clean Trucks Acts of 2023 starts to look at trucks, large, medium, and heavyweight trucks, basically following the California standard where those trucks would be required to be low emission electric vehicles. Again, I still feel like we may be putting the cart before the horse in that one as well too, as we just don't have the technology, the infrastructure in place for that, nor are those trucks really readily available that is going to be able to do the job and make sure we don't have animal welfare issues if a battery was to run low as we're trying to make deliveries. So with that, I believe I just want to put some dates out in front of you. Chicken Day in Annapolis is coming back to Annapolis. We're excited. We've missed out for the past few years, but again, February 28th from 11 to 1 at the Governor Calver House. Yes, there will be chicken, multiple chicken on the menu. Local chicken actually being provided by one of our companies, and we're even narrowing down what grower that chicken potentially will be coming from. That's as local as it gets, folks. So again, we look forward to seeing you on February 28th. And then the last date I would just say is our Booster Barbecue, which was formerly our Booster Banquet that we had in Salisbury. We've changed that up a couple years ago due to COVID, moved that to the Delaware State Fairgrounds, made it more of a casual event. And the feedback that we received from our members was this was overwhelmingly, everyone enjoyed it. So June 7th, that event will be probably about 4 to 7 time frame at the Delaware State Fairgrounds, and we welcome you for that. And with that, I will stop and answer any questions that there may be.
Okay, thank you, Holly and Zach. And Holly, my first Chicken Day was 2015. I still have my chicken from that day as a good reminder of what you mean to us on the Eastern Shore. And Zach, your statistics with jobs, it's not just yours and indirect jobs. Surely related industries, as families live on the Eastern Shore, those indirect and tertiary jobs, that we count on a healthy chicken industry and an ag industry. If you're healthy, that means the whole Eastern Shore is healthy and better off. So thank you for the presentation. And Senator Croza, question.
Yes, and I'll be brief since Holly did mention, but the Senate Bill 158, the pesticide registration and the PFAS testing requirements, we know is absolutely unworkable. And I really appreciate that you all, the different ag organizations, coordinated your testimony yesterday. And I really thought the point that you made about, what you do support was also a good point that Lindsay made. And as a follow-up, I mentioned this right after the hearing when we were huddling outside. I think that you all did a good job of showing how it was unworkable, but it also became very clear to me that it's a very complex process, that people didn't understand that you just don't have one test and one test takes care of all the pesticides. And so I think you're going to need to do some education. For instance, Senator Ben Brooks, right to my left, was asking me questions about that. So I wanted to ask Holly what you thought, what the coordination will be to go back to those members and really kind of underscore, how this is so unworkable and educate on the complexity of these tests.
Sure. No, I appreciate the question. And again, and we stated in our testimony, the issue of PFAS is very important. There's no arguing that. I think everybody out there, we all have concerns as to, these forever chemicals and what they mean, the different impacts. I think our, aspect was, again, where the science, this is one that the science is developing very quickly, that whether it's testing, whether it's monitoring, whether it's which of these chemicals has, more impact than others. And so we will, our ag community, we work very closely together. I know that I saw Colby, I believe, on here with Farm Bureau, Lindsay. There's several of us. We will be talking again later this afternoon and plan to follow up to, again, just emphasize that PFAS is extremely important. We want to be at the table to have conversations about, what the impacts are and what we can do about those within our own industries, but to again recognize that, to simply say you must do testing for pesticides without a valid testing method for the multiple different types. I think there was mentioned 12,000 registered pesticides, which also include disinfectants. I think folks forget that germs and viruses are pests. So any of our disinfectants, any of us that have hand sanitizer sitting right next to us right now, those are registered products as well. And we just want to make sure that, again, there's not unintended consequences from something that honestly is just really starting to be understood better throughout all of the state as well as the country.
Okay, Kylie, thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, Delmarva Chicken Industry, thank you very much for your presentation and look forward to seeing you on Chicken Day, if not sooner.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, our next presenters are Lead Maryland. I know my office received some folks from Lead Maryland yesterday and enjoyed their presentation. So Tim Bishton and Rachel Rhodes, you're up.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning, Eastern Shore delegation. Tim and I would like to thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. My name is Rachel Rhodes. I am the Extension Educator for the University of Maryland Extension in Queen Anne's County. In addition, my husband and I own and operate a poultry farm in Queen Anne's County. We are one of those 1,300 member family farms that Zach mentioned that are members of DCA. We are thankful for DCA and its representation here today. We also have 2 sons, and we grow organic broilers for Coleman. We also own and operate a grain farm where we grow corn, wheat, soybeans, and we participate annually in the cover crop program. Furthermore, I'm a member of Lead Maryland Class 12. And Lead Maryland is a 2-year educational fellowship program designed to provide new skills and experiences to people dedicated to serving agriculture, natural resources, and rural communities. Our class meets in a series of seminars that are about 3 to 4 days long and are held around every other month for about 2 years. A different region hosts each seminar, and we are actively learning about different issues, perspectives, and we are meeting amazing leaders and studying a variety of topics from across the state. The Lead Maryland program is funded through the agricultural industry, grants, and the University of Maryland Extension. And we are so thankful for the funding and support for programs like Maryland Agricultural Education Rural Development Assistance Fund and the Rural Maryland Council, the Maryland Department of Agriculture, and the University of Maryland Extension. Our class is slated to travel to Panama and Colombia in early 2024 for a study tour to learn about global perspectives, foreign economies, culture, agriculture, and aquaculture. As leaders serving the agricultural, natural resources, and rural communities, please call on us if there's anything that we can do for you to assist you as you move forward with this session. I know that we're always up and open and welcome for farm tours or just a chat. And I would also like to thank you for participating in our ag dinner last night and for meeting with us yesterday as well.
All right. Hello, my name is Tim Bishton, and again, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. I live in Ward, Maryland, which is in King County, with my wife, Nicole, and our 13-month-old daughter, Carmela. I grew up on my family's dairy farm in Kennedyville, where we milked around 250 cows until about 2018. Currently, I'm a farm and crop insurance specialist with the Crow Insurance Agency that covers all of Delmarva. My wife also works in agriculture and is the agronomy specialist with University of Maryland Extension. So agriculture is certainly something that's ingrained in our everyday lives and careers. I also want to thank the delegation for their continued work and support of agriculture in Maryland, and also the funding that they give to LEAD, as Rachel mentioned. It was great seeing many of you yesterday evening at the Taste of Maryland. So thank you again for attending that event. We also want to thank Delegate Sample Hughes for taking time out of her busy day and taking us in for quite a while and meeting with our class. I know also on the call today, there's many other LEAD fellows and alum. Holly and Zach and Colby are all part of LEAD Maryland. So just want to say hi to all those folks as well. Thank you very much.
Got my lead pin on for support for you guys.
All right. I like it, Zach. Okay, any questions from the delegation? Okay, I'm seeing none. Rachel and Tim, thank you for the evening last night. Thank you for the work that you do. I enjoyed, again, our presentation at my office yesterday with some LEAD members, and have a good day. We'll move along with our agenda. Okay, so I'm looking for federal updates from Mandy Harris's office or Kim Cradaville. I see. Hi, Kim. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Lots of great information. Thank you to the presidents and to the Delmarva Chicken Association and all of you all. Just adding my 2 cents for the retirement of Ray Hoy and Dr. Goodwin. Those are big holes to fill and will be sorely missed. And they've been such an asset to the shore. Nice to hear all the shout outs about the federal funds coming to the shore though. And as you know where to find us. Still conducting our congressionally directed spending individual meetings, and please reach out if you'd like the municipalities or local governments would like to have one of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Alyssa Hastings there?
Hi, Mr. Chair. Alyssa Hastings from Senator Van Hollen's office. Just wanted to echo also what Kimberly said. Our office is scheduling meetings now for the congressionally directed spending process. Happy to set up meetings with our appropriations folks and discuss any projects. So please reach out. Thank you.
Okay. Any other federal updates? I think that was the two that are with us. Okay, so we're going to talk about one bill for start, and Delegate Hartman last year had a bill put in related to hotel rental tax rates. In his work last year, he discovered that that is a bill that can't be done as a local bill, that it has to apply equally to code counties. And Delegate Hartman, if you wanted to give us, and for the purpose of the public setting here, we're considering either supporting his legislation or in fact making it a Eastern Shore delegation bill for expediency. So that's a conversation and a question for another day. But for now, I'd like to just hear from Delegate Hartman and maybe some thoughts from other members as we discuss this.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. So last year, Worcester County, the town of Ocean City, came to me looking to increase the room tax. We put in a bill to do that and found that being one of the 4 code counties on the Eastern Shore, all 4 of them had to do that. So talking with the county, I thought it was fair that we, pull the bill back for last year, had time to work with the other counties and get the consent of the county commissioners. Wes Young, the county administrator from Worcester, has done a great job in reaching out to the other 3 counties, which are Caroline, Queen Anne's, and I believe it's Dorchester. Caroline, Queen Anne's, and Ken. I'm sorry. They have letters of support in hand from Caroline and Queen Anne's. Ken County voted on it. My understanding, voted to agree to the enabling legislation on January 31st at their work session. Basically, what the bill does is allows those 4 counties to take the room tax that's currently at 5% to 6%. 6% would put us kind of in the middle of the state. Room tax varies anywhere from a low of 3% at Cecil County to a high of 9.5% at Baltimore City and Baltimore County. This is completely enabling legislation. Voting on this does not vote for a tax increase. Voting on this allows your county commissioners to increase the room tax that 1%. This the reason for Worcester County wanting to do it is to allow our tourists to pay for the expense associated with them. As we all know, public service, public safety, keeping the streets clean, everything is costing more today, and they find it necessary for that tax increase. So again, completely enabling. All of the county commissioners are 100% on board, and I think with it affecting 4 of the shore counties, I think it would be a great first piece of legislation for the Eastern Shore delegation to carry.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Hartman. Is there any discussion from members? Delegate Ahrens.
Yeah, I just, I understand the thing. I did receive the letter from my county commissioners. I've tried to reach out to them to have a discussion on it. My only caution on something like this, and I do appreciate the dilemma that Worcester County's in, or the situation Worcester County's in, and this is a very easy way to benefit on their tourism. But when you start looking at something like this, and I have the experience back when I was a county commissioner and with Kerwin, I've tried to have a couple conversations to say, you're enabling an tax, and Wayne, I get that, and I appreciate that, but I think the issue comes down to, with something like Kerwin that's out there with us today, that before you can count on state money, and this is a history, I'm not saying it happens every time, and if you're asking as a county for state funding on something, they will insist that you max out every tax you have. We were in a circumstance in Queen Anne's County back in 2010 where, in order to get the assistance from the state we needed, Queen Anne's County needed to max out their piggyback tax. And I sort of understood that, but had we been maxed out at the piggyback tax at that time and not had that ability, we probably wouldn't have had to go that route, which increased the taxes on the people making money. And that may be or may not be the tax you want to put in place. In Queen Anne's County, the other thing I wanted to emphasize to them is that Queen Anne's County is not Ocean City. Caroline County is not Ocean City. Kent County is not Ocean City. And we do not have, although we rely on tourism, we just put another new hotel up in Queen Anne's County, and there will be taxes associated with that. I talked to some citizens who have called me on this because I don't know how much of a look it got, but in Queen Anne's County, we do not tax our Airbnbs, and they're suggesting that. I mean, I understand the purpose of the thing. I understand and appreciate why they want to do it. I just think that there's some considerations here that we should take a look at. And again, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but back long ago, people like you and me, everybody in this meeting, as far as the delegation, somewhere along the line, we made the decision against our county wishes to get rid of the highway user dollars and do that without a whole lot of communication between the two of us. And I think had that happened in the past, highway user dollars may or may not be in the situation they are in today. So it's just food for thought. My county obviously has sent the letter, and I've seen it, and I've sent it over. It's just something I think we need to maybe go back and have a discussion with them on that. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Delegate Aronson. And you and I talked one-on-one about this, and I think it's important that we vet these sort of things. It's interesting because we talked back in December about bringing legislation that's of the variety of the Eastern Shore delegation and support. And I think what Delegate Hartman is saying is that this, under normal circumstances, would be a local courtesy bill. Worcester County is asking for it, and last year they made the effort to do it just like that, and were instructed that they in fact can't do that, that it has to apply equally to comparable counties. And therein lies the dilemma, which comes down to Delegate Hartman surely could put the bill in. I think he drafted it in his name. Should we choose as a delegation to support the bill, and again, we're not going to vote this today, and we can stop conversation if there's no further thoughts, but if we support it as a delegation, I think we're creating the local courtesy, but we're creating it for the entire shore. And it does set a precedent, because I don't know that I've been around in 9 years and seen us support any Eastern Shore delegation bills. But if there was ever going to be a bill where we would want to get some support of a larger group of delegates and senators, and also input, so Delegate Aronson, your input and valuable thoughts on this, it would be the sort of bill that would cause us to have dynamic conversations amongst all Eastern Shore delegates and senators that this affects. And it does affect three districts, right? It's three separate Senate districts and 9 delegates. So Delegate Hartman, if you had any response or thoughts, and then
sure, Chris, if I can add, if anyone questions you as far as one of your constituents, the thing of it is, most people in your county aren't staying in hotel rooms within their own county. So this isn't a tax increase on your constituents. It's allowing your county commissioners the ability, if needed, to raise additional funding. The Worcester County commissioners weren't very excited about this initially. And then as things started to the discussion moved on, one of the problems we're having in Worcester County is the increased expense of providing fire and EMS services. So, the county commissioners are starting to, be open-minded. As you can see, they have a letter of support for it, because as, with inflation, everything, costs are increasing, and this is a way to allow people that are creating some of that expense to pay for it. So with that, I'll close. And Mr. Chair, if I can, once we're done with this, if I can have 30 seconds, Atlantic General Hospital experienced a situation last weekend that I think is important to share with the Eastern Shore delegation. We live in the land of pleasant living, and don't think things can happen. Saturday, Atlantic General was hit with ransomware. They acted on it rather quickly, isolated all their computers, nothing in or out. So actually they were operating as an island. Patient services weren't affected. They were able to, go on with emergency room services and everything else. It did affect their operation as far as their ability for electronic charts, things like that. Their prescription entity Ready, I'm not sure of the name of their prescription entity, but they're still acting as an island. They, can't communicate on the incoming pharmacies and things like that for prescriptions. The doctors were doing all the charts back by paper and pen. I think they were starting to like that once again. But I think it's important to create the awareness on the shore. Tidal Health was excellent in working with them and supporting them. And I think they did all the right steps in cutting off any further damage to their computer system and not letting it get outside of that. So just a word of caution to the shore.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Hartman. So to the bill, what I support the idea of trying to make this a delegation priority and therefore bill. We'll vote this as we do other local county bills by vote next week. Just we'll do it through paper voting. And so what I would say is, as we're going around and getting support for the bill in that way, it'll give each of us time to talk about this bill amongst ourselves. And yeah, I think we have till next Friday to drop bills. So we've got a full week to vet this out. We can surely come back next Friday and talk about it. So that's what we'll do with that. Let's see, Delegate Hutchinson, do you have a moment about your trauma bill? We'd like to, have you dropped that bill, or are you getting ready to drop the bill?
Thank you, Chair Adams. I plan to drop the bill today, and it'll be cross-filed through Senator Carozza, who I think has dropped it with some modifications that'll be needed. But this was a bill that came about our debrief with Tidal Health, and it is to create a study to evaluate the trauma funding in Maryland. Interestingly, though, I have talked to all 7 of the state agencies that are involved in this, and through some compromise and negotiation, I think we've come to agreement how the commission will be structured. But I've also had the opportunity to talk to representatives from Hopkins, University of Maryland, Lethbridge, Meredith, UPMC out in Western Maryland, as well as DC Children's Hospital, who are all part of the trauma network. And all of them are very interested in this because apparently there is concerns and issues on how they are being reimbursed through the current physician fund that began in 2003. So I think we have good support. I think we'll have favorable support. And I'd like to ask that the delegation provides a similar support as well.
Okay, so Delegate Hutchinson, what we'll do is we'll take your and Senator Carozza's bills and we'll put that to the members, and we'll vote the support, which you'll surely get next Friday at that meeting. So we need a draft of your actual bill when you get that to us, and we'll share it with the group. So thank you. That's a good first bill for you, Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you. It's been enjoyable to work on it.
Absolutely. Last bill, and Delegate Hornberger, this has been your championed issue, although I think we have some other members, Delegate Hartman, that's aware of this. And so we have a local bill. You, Delegate Hornberger, have you drafted the bill? I know I had something I was working on, and the bill drafter forgot to put the part in that was going to be enabling legislation. But can we reset that? It seems like we have a little bit of time to reset the issue, and then again we should decide if and how the delegation would approach that. I've received some concerns and criticism on the bill, but that's beside the point at this juncture. I'm curious where you stand and your current thoughts on the LEOPS bill for EMS and dispatchers.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some background. We did have 2 jurisdictions that were looking at expanding potentially groups that could opt into LEOPS. And just some background on LEOPS. LEOPS is set up to create a shared pension system, especially for smaller jurisdictions. And it's really for 3 cohorts of first responders, which are law enforcement, paramedics, and firefighters. And it gets a little bit more nuanced in state law because each title of job needs to be listed at the state level in order for a group to opt into participating in LEOPS. So in this particular case, we had EMTs that wanted to participate in LEOPS. So sorry, the dog's barking here. Sorry about that. I'm working from home today. Anyway, so EMTs are not explicitly listed. So we sought out advice from the State Pension Board, and Ann Garthrop from Director of Legislative Affairs for the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System actually advised us that in order for EMTs to be able to join in to LEOPS, that they would have to be added to the list, and that bill would in fact have to be a statewide bill. So based on her advice, we drafted a statewide bill that was dropped yesterday. And all it does is enable. It doesn't obligate any jurisdiction in the state. If the bill were to pass, immediately following that, if there was a group of EMTs in any jurisdiction where it's a municipal, county government, would have to negotiate with the authority having jurisdiction, whether that's the town council, county council, commissioners, et cetera, or county executive. And once they reached a negotiation, they would then start the process with the state board and then discuss all the contributory allotments and basically start the program. So that's the background on it. It is a statewide bill. Of course, any support we can get would be great, but this just allows another group to participate. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, so let me just say that I want to make sure that for this part of the meeting, it probably should just be member input. I think we're talking about this amongst ourselves for the purpose, obviously, in a public setting. Do any of the other members have questions? And then I'll try to the best of my ability, articulate the concerns coming from Caroline County, amongst others. But I'll leave it to other members if they'd like to chime in for a moment on this. So Delegate Hornberger, one of the things that Caroline County brought up is that they were concerned with, while it's enabling legislation, and I haven't seen your bill, so I don't know what your bill actually says, but let me just start by saying, is it enabling legislation?
Yeah, it's enabling, and it doesn't obligate anyone to participate. It's no different than a police force or a paramedic.
Okay, so the point that was being made to me is that these are benefits that are expensive on jurisdictions, and in some cases, like Caroline County, that this would put them at a competitive disadvantage. And I'll be honest with you, I've not read your bill, so I don't know what exactly it says. If you're bringing a statewide bill, I'd ask you, is there a Senate cross-file to that bill?
So currently we don't have a Senate cross-file. However, that's something that if someone wants to pick up on the Senate side, that'd be great.
Okay.
I tell you, I've become more informed about our statewide pension system in the last 2 weeks than I ever cared to know. But this is just a technicality of why this group can't participate. Pretty simple and straightforward. Yep.
Yeah. Senator Mounts.
Sorry, my computer's a little slow. I do have a identical bill. It's not necessarily a cross file to Delegate Hornberger's, but it's been requested, not county specific, but it's been recommended through one of the counties. But I can talk about it offline.
Yeah. Love to collaborate with you there, Senator. Thanks.
All right. Well, I believe that this means that we're not going to have this as a delegation bill, which I believe was the thrust of the conversation, and I'm okay with leaving it.
Yeah, that's correct. Just the direction we got from bill drafting is that we couldn't make it region specific. So,
all right. And so as we get feedback from our individual counties, I think that's going to play into the conversation. And
yeah, and I would certainly encourage, if a jurisdiction has interest in the bill, to either follow up with me and then also to have the ability to testify for or against it during the committee hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Porter, I see you there, but I think we just, for now, we can have open conversation about this at another meeting. There's a request. So this is, we're done with the bills that I was going to talk about. We did write a letter of support for Title Health last week. We sent that, actually wasn't a letter of support, it's a request to the HSCRC to grant Title Health a public vetting or a hearing within their process. And I want to thank you members for letting us pull that through. Next week, we'll based on University of Baltimore and the residency program with Shore Health. We've drafted the support letter for that. We'll make sure you get a copy of that letter, and we'll do it the same way. We'll ask for your concerns, and then we'll send that letter out next week. Is there any other business for the good of the order? I'll start by saying there is Colby Ferguson.
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir. Absolutely.
If I could just add, the bill that I just described, as well as Senator Bounce bills potentially, will be discussed with the EMS coalition on Monday. They have a weekly meeting, so they'll be reviewing the bill as well, and that meeting is open to the public, is my understanding. Okay. So just a little bit more background. Thank you.
Good. Well, it's on our radar, but we're not thinking of it as anything other than you've got legislation and you want to potentially bring it forward for support. So let's see. I'm looking for. I thought it was Colby. I'm looking at a text message, but it's for Maryland Farm Bureau.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Just very quickly, just wanted to put another plug in for next Wednesday at over at the Governor Calvert House is our day in Annapolis. We've got probably the largest number of farmers we've had in my 10 years of doing this. We're going to have about 100, I think right now we're at 146. We had to shut it off because we've maxed out the Calvert House. So that's luncheons from 12 to 1. So we hope you'll be able to come over and spend a couple of minutes with us and eat and see some of the farmers from the Eastern Shore that are coming down. And then also a very specific ask, if there's any specific bills that we don't talk about on Wednesday that you might want some additional information on, we are coming back. I've got our president, Wayne Stafford, who's Cecil County farmer, and our second vice president, Jonathan Quinn, who's a Kent County grain producer, will be on the presenting next week, next Friday at the Eastern Shore delegation with myself. So if there's any specific things you want us to target in that limited time frame, let me know, or we'll just give you kind of a general what we're looking for that you maybe didn't hear at the day in Annapolis.
Well, Colby, you'll be presenting right after Kevin Addix, our new Secretary of Ag, and our delegation is going to be hearing from many secretaries through there. So looking forward to that, and we'll give you some heads up if there's questions. We're running out of time. We just got our first bill. I do see, is that Andy Harris's iPhone?
Yes, this is Jackie Gregory. So I couldn't get my camera working earlier, so I apologize, but I do want to let everybody know I'm on the call. As you've probably heard, Congressman Harris is chairing the Agricultural and Rural Development Subcommittee under Appropriations. So if there's anything you need, please reach out, and our office would be more than happy to help. That's all I have.
Very good. And I know we're working with the Congressman's office to have him come in and present, and look forward to hearing all the good news that he's going to have with this new leadership role. So terrific. Members, the bells are ringing, so we got to head over. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second. All right. Have a good day.